I started watching thinking that Akane was the main character, but actually the protagonist is this guy. I was deceived. Hey guys, how are you? I hope you are well. In this video I intend to reflect a little about why there are so few female protagonists in shounens. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I am the Monio, the interdimensional demon that most questions shounens on YouTube, and it's on my channel. First let's define what shounen is. Unlike what many think, shounen is not a genre. As much as many shounen share many characteristics, the term shounen is not used to define any type of style or narrative characteristic. Shounen is a demography. But the Monio, what does that mean? There are many demographics in Japan. They are divisions of magazines by target audience. Each demographic will focus on a specific audience. There are several demographics focusing on women, adults, among others. But in this video we will focus on shounen, which is made for the young male audience. So for you who are watching this video and like the shounen genre, I propose an exercise for you to be able to say 5 shounens starring women, remembering that it's only worth shounens, okay? Pause the video if you need to. So, could you think of the 5 anime? It's not easy to think of in reality. I can only think of a few: Stone Ocean, which is part 6 of JoJo, Saint Seiya Show, and Kill la Kill. In fact, there are very few of them, and even those that I mention, it is not possible to say that they are such good examples. But the Monio, what are you talking about? Jolyne, for example, is an excellent protagonist. And I tell you, yes, she is. She is one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. But at the time that Stone Ocean was going to be released, the editors at Araki wanted her to be a man, because they thought that the male audience would not accept a female protagonist. But Araki insisted, saying that if the public did not accept it, that was one of the reasons Jolyne was a woman. But the Monio, that means Stone Ocean was a big paradigm shift at the time for daring to put a female lead, right? Yes, it certainly was. By the way, not only Jolyne, all the female characters in Stone Ocean like Erms and Foo Fighters are excellent, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a very unique case, as it is divided into parts, and Stone Ocean is the 6th part. After 5 parts starring men, Araki was already a renowned mangaka, and JoJo is a solid and very well-established franchise, and that's what made it possible to have an entire part starring a woman. Saint Seiya Show, on the other hand, is a spin-off of the Saint Seiya franchise starring a woman, but it is a case similar to Stone Ocean, as it is a derivative of an already established successful franchise. So maybe the best example of those I gave is Kill la Kill, since as far as I know, it is not derived from anything. It is a unique work that already started with a female protagonist. The problem is that Kill la Kill is not a shounen, but a seinen, since it is aimed at a more adult audience, and besides, I didn't watch it, so I can't speak with authority. But why exactly is it so difficult to have female protagonists in shounen? But the Monio, the answer to that is very easy. If shounen has an audience of young boys, it is clear that boys will feel more represented by male protagonists. And I tell you, not necessarily. If that were true, the opposite wouldn't happen, and we wouldn't have women watching shounens. We wouldn't have men watching Stone Ocean and liking that part so much, which was chosen to end the original timeline and is one of the most emotional endings of the entire work. Of course, there is a smaller number of women who watch shounen compared to men, that's true. But that comes from the fact that women tend to be less interested in anime and manga in general, not specifically shounen. But if you focus on women who consume anime, they usually watch shounens too. If you look at the counterpart of shounen, which would be shoujo, which are works made for young women, there are a much greater number of male protagonists in shoujo than female protagonists in shounen. So the problem is not that women don't like it or not identify with male characters. The truth is that we can identify with and create emotional connections with characters of any gender, and the big reason that prevents us from having more female protagonists is the very profile of the Japanese, which is still very prejudiced towards women, especially in the way humor is portrayed. Japanese treats female characters in anime in general, reducing many female characters to sexualized stereotypes and giving them little or no importance in the plot. And this makes it very difficult in this context for a woman to be normalized as a main character, and this I see as a reflection how Japanese society is still old-fashioned, due to a very strong traditionalist heritage, where behaviors are expected according to the roles assigned to men and women, The idea that this was done for boys and not for girls. But not only that, because the shounen manga market is very culturally masculine, it is difficult even for women authors to release shounen manga. There is a great prejudice with the fact that a woman author makes this type of manga, even if the characters are all male. Many female mangaka choose to sign as men, and only after the work is successful do they reveal themselves as women, which is the case of the mangaka author of Demon Slayer. But it's not like shounen completely ignores the women of that world created in the work. If you consider the archetypes of shounen characters, you'll have the protagonist, another guy who rivals the protagonist, and a girl, and that makes up a structure which many shounen follow as a formula that usually works and appeals to the target audience. But the Monio, if the public consumes the content that way, it is because it is successful, or at least it is more successful than if you had female protagonists. And I tell you, this is a fallacy. We know that it can be successful. The problem is that I believe there is no effort to try. If we go back to the example of Stone Ocean, the editors of Shounen Jump did not want Jolyne to be a woman, but Araki was against it. And so we have a female protagonist in JoJo, but he was against it because he's Araki. He already had a legion of fans of his work. If it depended on the magazine's editors, there wouldn't even be an attempt. But the Monio, do you think that there were never attempts to make female protagonists, and that if there were it would be successful? And I say not necessarily, because whether it will be successful or not will depend a lot on the quality of each of the works, but it is not strange that we have such a ridiculously low number of female protagonists in shounen in relation to the amount of manga we have today. There have certainly been attempts, but could it be that coincidentally all these works were bad and that's why they weren't successful? One thing is for sure, when you are predisposed not to like something, the chances of you actually liking it are much lower, so I think it's much more a matter of overcoming the barriers I mentioned, than having quality or having the identification of the target audience. So I think that what explains this phenomenon that occurs specifically with shounen is caused by several factors, ranging from cultural contexts to the profile of the Japanese public. And you, what do you think? Does what I said make sense to you? Leave it in the comments, and if you're a woman, your opinion will be especially welcome. Until next time, my people, demonic hugs.